Hello, everyone. This is BCSGA Director of Student Activities and Bakersfield College's SSCCC Delegate Perla Villegas. I want to thank you all for tuning in again, listeners. This is BCSGA's second podcast, where we will be discussing our experiences and decisions made at the Spring 2020 General Assembly held via Zoom. Today, we have with us is our BCSGA President Samantha Polito, SSCCC Region 5 Regional Affairs Director and Student Trustee of Reedley College, and the new SSCCC Vice President-elect Stephen Coder, BCSGA Director of Legislative Affairs and Finance, as well as the SSCCC Region 5 Legislative Affairs Director Johnny Madden. Now, the General Assembly was held on April 3rd and ended this April 5th at 3:15, passing 27 resolutions out of 29 submitted. Before we get into the resolutions and which ones were passed, let's start off with how GA was able to happen at all this year due to the novel virus COVID-19. Stephen and Johnny, give us the rundown that occurred at the board's meeting regarding General Assembly and whether it was going to happen at all.
Right around the GA planning, the whole coronavirus stuff started happening. And we kind of ran into the issue of Newsom saying you can't have any meetings of people larger than 250. Well, we have 115 community colleges in California, and even with just bringing a student and the director, gets really close to our limit. So then it was kind of, well, do we get to pick and choose who goes? Because we also need the board of directors to go. There's got to be staff working the event just at the hotel. And then we also have to have it available for the public. And then also there's the consideration of the whole moving it to online. But then we already put down a lot of money into the hotel, so we'd still owe a fairly large portion. So we had a kind of a special meeting to discuss it, and it got very heated in that BOD meeting. You want to talk about that, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely. I think historically, we have always held General Assembly in person. So I think a lot of people just came into that meeting unsure of what would happen. Like Johnny was saying, that we have 115 community colleges. We usually average at least 400 students at these events. And how are we going to be able to, cater to all those students? I'm part of the events committee, and the events committee, really, we delved into this, and we were just like, how would this even work? How would we be able to pull off an online General Assembly? Because it's already hard, as you probably know, going over the last couple of weeks, just doing a class online. And that's only like 30-something students. How are we going to be able to monitor a chat, make sure everyone's muted so people from the public aren't just talking? Because at General Assembly, everyone's just, they always have something to say. So if they just unmute their mic and they just start blabbing, you can't really stop that unless you have someone just on the mic. So, it got really heated. We really wanted to play devil's advocate and just go over what are the pros, what are the cons, can we still pull this off? Because our Constitution still says that we need to hold a General Assembly. That's something that we have to do. So we actually had to go through and change our bylaws to allow for it to happen during Zoom. And you know what? After the whole meeting ended, I think it actually went pretty great. For our first run in the mill, our first run through this, it actually went really well. I'm very happy. We had I think it was 82 at one point colleges registered. And on average, we were averaging about 70 to 75 delegates every day. Participants maxing out at around 200 each day, usually averaged around 170, which is awesome. Totally different platform. And we still had a great turnout.
Oh, you know what? Icing on the cake. If this was also the only GA we held this year. Historically, we always held 2 GAs, one in the fall, one in the spring. So then to kind of go and say, hey, you know what? We're not going to have GA in presence, even though it's the only GA you guys will get this year. It upset a lot of people. I think after we did the test runs and after that first day where we kind of walked through all of it, we had some issues with the computers, with a lot of people not being able to get into the call. I know I got kicked out off my laptop at least twice during the first day. But it all went well. I actually think this was a pretty good GA. And we actually had a fairly good turnout. Usually on the last day, we've been down to like 30 schools. So to have 50 or 60 throughout the whole last day, that was actually really good. Because the last GA, we weren't even able to pass the strategic plan because attendance just dropped. But we actually got through everything to this year. So I thought it went really well.
Yeah, and I think the best part about it is I think it helped solve a little bit of an equity issue. In years past, the ASOs that could afford it were the ones that were at General Assembly, and that was it. This time, yeah, there's still, or were there students that didn't have good enough internet or students that didn't have the technology to be here. But I think that was a little bit more equitable than to have to pay to go to a conference. I think that just helped in our reaching the masses of students and being more equitable to them. So that was really good.
So, with the decision of having GA online and now having done it, what were y'all expectations? Was your experience with the Zoom GA at all what you expected?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, as part of the events committee, I really asked, let's try this out. So our board of directors meetings, the whole last 2 weeks, we had probably like 3 board of directors meetings, and we had to try it. So everyone was in Zoom, which, it wasn't too hard because there's only about 26 of us directors. But then we had to do the poll everywhere also, which was definitely a learning curve that we had to grasp. That first day, it took us an hour just to provide quorum on Friday's General Assembly. It took us over an hour just to go through quorum check. Like, that was crazy. I did not expect that. But I mean, that's just the learning process of doing an online General Assembly, making sure everyone can get into the poll. Oh, we did a roll call vote and it came out to, 70 something schools. But when you check the poll, there was only 50 something answers. That's something that we're going to have to learn and bridge that gap. So it wasn't what I expected. I think it actually outdid my expectations by the end of the weekend. At first, it was definitely a learning process. I was one of the chat moderators and having to constantly be, don't discuss in the chat, no discussions, or hey, stop, you're breaking Brown Act, don't do this. That was actually fun, but it was definitely wasn't what I expected. Definitely a learning experience. I enjoyed it though. I'm hoping as moving forward, we still do General Assembly in person because that is ultimately the best experience. But I think we need to open it up and allow some Zoom members also. And I think that would be awesome. I think in years to come, we could actually get every single college to be in attendance, quote unquote, for General Assembly if we do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially with kind of breaking that barrier this year, I could see us in the future starting to incorporate Zoom for the schools that can't afford to go, especially with the money that we'll be getting with AB 1504. We'll definitely be able to afford the equipment, and I think that will be an option in the future. I can definitely see that happening. But yeah, I know this year kind of blew my expectations. I honestly had no expectations for online GA. I honestly didn't even know if we'd get through that quorum. At one point, I honestly thought we were going to have to call it and not have quorum, but everyone pulled it together. The chat was very well moderated. I honestly thought it was just going to turn into a meme chat like in the previous years with the app that we've had, but people stayed pretty professional on it. There were some cases of people acting out, one issue of name calling, but we kind of all rallied really fast and pulled that through. The one thing I was kind of disappointed by was just the lack of work that the BOD members had. I honestly really wanted to walk around with a sign that said silence. I saw Mustafa do that last year, and I really wanted to do that this year. That was my goal. But you can still go in the chat and tell people not to act out, so it was kind of good. The poll everywhere was a hard issue, and I was trying to help a lot of people. I think eventually they figured out that there's just a code you got to put in, and your username is your name and delegate in your school. I think a lot of people thought they'd have to make an individual account and sign in and join this room, kind of like Zoom. I think they had higher expectation for what poll everywhere would be. We did really well, though. We pulled together very well. Even the parliamentarians, they were very active this year. And I think that was actually kind of a pro because they had direct access to the delegates instead of someone having to walk up to the Parley Pro mic, ask a question, that BOD member going up to the parliamentarian, asking and the answer. This allowed everyone to hear what the scenario was and what the parliamentarian's response would be towards it. I think that actually helped a lot. The one downfall is that there wasn't that whole Parley Pro training for about an hour and a half before GA starts. But again, we have really good BOD members, so they should be training the delegates in the regions anyways. That showed pretty well. There were really good motions made and a lot of delegates who knew their stuff, especially Region 5. We were the best.
Definitely. All thanks to Stephen Coder. President Polito, you've been to previous General Assemblies. Was there anything lost with having GA held virtually than if it were held in person?
Firstly, I want to say that the SSCCC did a great job with the 2020 virtual General Assembly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to thank them and our Region 5 Rad and Lad for their hard work because I know that they did the best they could do with the current circumstances they had. Of course, just like our education at school, a virtual and an in-person format are completely two different experiences. I believe through this virtual format of GA, we did lose use the feature of networking with other California community college students and learning about what other student governments are doing right now at their college to help their students. From the past 2 in-person General Assemblies I attended, I loved connecting with CCC students at these conferences and trying to see if we can work together to implement a new project at Bakersfield College or at their college. Although this was a loss, I believe we still achieved what we came to do at General Assembly and what we come to do at General Assembly every single year. We come to represent our students at our college through voting upon resolutions that will help all community college students. We didn't lose our leadership through this virtual platform. I believe that we created a louder voice for our students by showing that nothing can stop us from speaking up for all 2.1 million California community college students. So I could proudly say that it was a small loss for an empowering and productive virtual meeting.
So now that we know how it came about to hold GA this year, I want to dive into the work that was put into writing these resolutions and what happens with them afterwards when adopted to the SSCCC. Johnny, you're part of the Rules and Resolution Committee, so give us the details and what we should take away from the process.
So, rules and resolutions. With GA, first time we'd ever had one, once a year. The deadline was a little tricky, and a lot of people didn't catch that. We actually had to kind of extend the deadline. Well, the resolution processes that was voted on at GA, that included those late submitted resolutions. So originally we only had 12 resolutions, but we got up to 29 because of all those late submitted resolutions. Prior to GA, we actually go through and we review each resolution, and we kind of determine whether or not it's actually feasible or infeasible. A lot of resolutions have the resolves, but it's not necessarily a task that the SSCCC could do. So let's say there's a resolution and it says, be it resolved that Governor Newsom enacts Taco Tuesday on every California community college campus. Well, there's nothing that we can do about that. We're not Governor Newsom. We don't have direct access to him. There's nothing asking the SSCCC. So in that instance, we would contact the author like, hey, you need to fix this, and have an ask that the SSCCC could do. And we would tell them, like, maybe add in, be it resolved that the SSCCC advocates to Governor Newsom to enact Taco Tuesday on every California community college campus. Now there's a task that we could take on. So we review all the resolutions, we determine whether they're feasible, infeasible, we make sure that they're in the proper format. There's only so many whereases and resolves that you can have. It's 4 and 4. So if you have 5 and 5, we have to send it back to the author and tell them to fix it or edit it, and then they have to get it sponsored and submitted again. That's why it's always great to have it submitted early. That way we could actually review it and send it back to you. In some cases, there's minor errors that we could actually just kind of fix on site, but that's kind of very rare. With all the sponsorships, we have to make sure each sponsor is actually valid. So you can't have it sponsored by your best friend Tammy. You have to have it sponsored like the one on your screen right now, the Black Caucus, Region 9, and Region 5. Those are 3 different sources that are verified and actual valid to sponsor. They're groups of student bodies. Then after GA, all these resolutions that get passed go back to the committee again, and Rules and Resolutions will look at them and divide them up amongst all the committees. So some will get sent out to the Regional Affairs Committee, the Legislative Affairs Committee, and those committees will then be tasked with actually enacting what the resolution is asking for. So if it's something like the resolution that was AB 1504, that got sent to the Legislative Affairs Committee because it was actual legislation that they were trying to form. So the Legislative Affairs Committee took it, they wrote a letter of support, they reached out to assemblymen and stuff, and now we have AB 1504. So the rules and resolutions they formed all the resolution policies, and then they review all the resolutions and then divide them up into the committees necessary to actually have these resolutions happen. Oh, and they also make the resolutions matrix, and that's just a whole spreadsheet with each resolution, the session it was from, who it's assigned to, and the status on it, whether it's in progress or just assigned, or whether we've actually seen it through to completion. And that is now actually on the SSCCC website too.
Thank you, Johnny. So, Stephen, what would you like to communicate to our listeners who are students, faculty, staff, and the public?
Ultimately, students, faculty, staff, they're all part of the California community college system. And to me, we're all ultimately in here for one goal, and that's for student success. I mean, in General Assembly, we passed resolutions to focus the SSCCC in providing or advocating for legislation for student success. We're in it to make sure students succeed, whether you are a student and your success is that success pathway to get your, degree completed or your certificate, you're in it for student success. If you're a faculty member, you're a professor, you're in it to make sure as many of your students, succeed in your class. If you're just a staff member, you're a admissions and records person or a counselor, something like that, you're still ultimately in it for student success. So I want to just say, continue to do your work, continue to help students succeed, continue to be the student that does succeed, and just find a passion in it. The more I go to SSCCC events and I see students with a fire to really bring about student success, it's very encouraging. Listening to all the stories that these students have and the obstacles that they overcome, that's why I do what I do. So yeah, I just want to just say, continue to be in it for student success, continue to do what you do, and we can get through this whole thing together.
Thank you for that elegant message. So what can current and future student governments and CCCs expect with the new board of executives, along with your own interests and goals for the SSCCC?
That is a great question. So as you said earlier, I am now the new vice president-elect for the SSCCC. And I think the focus of this year's board of directors, I actually ran with a couple of them, we endorsed each other. And that's because we saw one view, and that was just empowering students. The whole reason I joined the ad hoc committee and I was the chair of the bylaws and the constitution revisions is because we were putting the power back into the students' hands. Historically, the SSCCC was the board of directors and regions operating completely separate of each other, it felt like. The board of directors was 26 students that just made countless decisions. I don't want to say that they made them outside of the student voice, but they were functioning outside. And the only time that we really connected with students was during General Assembly. Now what we're doing is we're putting the power back into the students' hands. We're making sure that we can call meetings outside of General Assembly to make sure that we can rally these students together. As a board, we really want to empower these students, get training to these students, so that way they can be effective delegates. My platform that I ran on 3 things. That was getting students the funding, the support, and the representation that they need. To me, basic needs funding is almost of utmost importance. So many community college students just struggle with the basic needs. And to me, it's one thing to hear, your executives say, I'm going to promise you the moon and the stars. For me, it's personal. I've gone through so many of the basic needs issues. There was so long that I didn't even have a car when I was going to my community college, and I would have to ride the bus. And then there was times that I couldn't afford the $1.25. My piggy bank just had no more change to give. And I literally had to ride my longboard from one town to the next, about 7 miles, just to get to school. That's an issue. So on my campus, I'm working with my administration for getting subsidized bus passes because I know what that issue meant to me and what it means to some students. I see students getting off the bus and I remember the story that I had. Same thing with the food pantries. There were times where I literally did not know where my next meal was going to come from. So being able to go to the food pantry and bum a packet of top ramen or a cup of noodle and be able to actually have that as a meal is huge. And I know other students in that same boat as me. Housing. I spent a whole semester couch surfing, and just to be able to afford the cost of paying for my textbooks and paying for my fees for school. So I know the importance of trying to get off-campus, low-income student housing. So all those things, getting students the funding that they need. Historically, community college students get pennies on the dollar per student than UC systems or Cal State systems. So that needs to be fixed. We really need to empower these students to be able to succeed. The other thing is just getting students represented. There's so many different committees out there that students just don't sit on. The student voice isn't being heard. So being able to get into those constituency meetings, even on just your local ASO campuses, making sure the students know, hey, if I have an issue with something, where can I go? Oh, that's something for your communications council, or that's something that you need to bring up to your board of trustees. Some students just don't know that. Get them represented. And I see that the new executive board that's coming in, the board officers, I really see them as that's one of their issues. They want to make sure that the student voice is heard. And then support. We all need support to be able to get through this. So whether that's empowering our regions, making sure that board members are calling into the regions just to see how we can help support them, whether that's just, through mental health, getting students the support that they need to be able to get through their classes. So those are 3 of the things that I really ran with on my campaign. I'm very glad that the students saw that. the delegates voted for me, and I really hope to work towards that over this next year. I really like the board that was voted in with me. Everyone that I ran with or that I endorsed actually made it. So we already have like a common bond, and we're really going to work to better empower the students for this next year. And I really see some great changes coming and some great things. So
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to what the new board of executives is going to bring about, and especially for the students in all of our community colleges, and how they will be more representative and more heard about and be more aware of everything that's happening, and that they should be more involved. So thank you, Stephen, for running, and thank you for all of the new board of executives. With that, now that we have all been enlightened about all this crucial and vital information, let's finally talk about some of the resolutions that we adopted this year. So, Samantha, let's have you give some commentary about some resolutions you found would be most beneficial.
Most of the resolutions that we voted upon are very beneficial to all California community college students. And I encourage all listeners that are listening to this podcast right now to read about the resolutions that were passed in the 2020 Virtual General Assembly. Some of my favorite resolutions were the Smoke and Tobacco Free California Community Colleges, which was written by our Region 5 Director, Jonathan Madden. Another resolution that was my favorite was the reestablishment of the Second Chance Pell Grant, the student email addresses, the mental health services on California community college campuses, and many more. I wish I can list them all, but we would be here for a while. The one that stuck out to me the most was the mental health services on California community college campuses. It stuck out to me because this resolution is what the Bakersfield College Student Government Association is trying to implement right now for our school. I was ecstatic when I found out that this was in the resolution packet for General Assembly. BCSGA is trying to implement the student health fee increase bill to bring more health services for our fellow renegades because our health center is very underfunded. Our student health fee increase bill is so important because there are many renegades that don't have health care, and the only service that they have is the BC Student Health and Wellness Center. I encourage all listeners and panelists to join into our Senate meeting this Wednesday at 4 p.m. to join our conversation on the bill to determine if this will be placed on our 2020 spring elections ballot that will be next week for the students to vote upon. It's so important for students, faculty, and staff to get involved in the conversation. Along on our 2020 spring elections ballot will be the BC Student Transportation Fee Bill that will allow students to pay a mandatory fee per semester for public transportation. All these measures are meant to help our fellow renegades achieve their main goal, which is a college degree. So please get connected with the SSCCC if you want to represent the 2.1 million California community college students, just like our wonderful Region 5 RAD and our Region 5 LAD, and also our Director of Student Activities, Perla Villegas. I've been in the SSCCC, and also our current Senator, Emma McNellis. And listening to our Senate virtual meeting on April 8th. Because it will definitely be an interesting one. I promise you that. And most importantly, vote next week. Please go and vote because your vote matters.
So speaking about resolution bills, make sure to hold your student government representatives responsible on their vote and contact them through their emails that are listed on the BC website as well as on the BCSGA Discord chat. I'll make sure to post all of the resolutions that were on the resolution packet, as well as the ones that were adopted, how many votes were casted on them, and what I voted as your Bakersfield College delegate for the SSCCC. So, Johnny, let's go ahead and have you talk about the resolutions that you helped write and some of them that you co-authored with, and the importance that you feel on how it'll benefit students in Bakersfield College.
Okay, so I was a co-author on 2 resolutions. The first one was the smoke-free and tobacco-free campuses, and then the second one was the reestablishment of the Second Chance Pell Grant. So it actually kind of started as just me and the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 9. We were having a discussion beginning of the year, and we were kind of just like, dude, we gotta present a resolution. That sounds really fun. So we kind of started talking, and we went over different issues. We went through the resolution matrix, and we saw what was already written and what we thought would be beneficial towards the students. And we first started with the smoke-free, tobacco-free campuses because we both were kind of tired of having tobacco on campuses. At BC, we have a tobacco-free campus, but it's not necessarily reinforced because the public safety doesn't really have any authority to do anything if you are smoking. They can tell you to stop, but they can't give you a citation. They can't write you a warning or anything. They can only tell you to stop. So we felt like the community college system was behind because the UCs and the CSUs were already 100% smoking tobacco-free. So we figured it would be a benefit to the health of the students to do that. There are already laws kind of in place where you can't smoke within, I think it's 10 feet of a doorway or a window or any building like that. A lot of schools have childcare, and there's a lot of students, and a lot of them have asthma. There are people who are allergic to smoke. So we thought it would just be overall beneficial to have a place of education where a lot of people are traveling through to be a safe spot for your health. So we wrote that resolution, Tariq and I'm happy it passed, and I'm happy it's going to be put on the legislative priorities next session. I can't wait to look back and see the community college system better off because of it. And then the second one was the reestablishment of the Second Chance Pell Grant. And that started because that was actually a resolution I was assigned to beginning of the year in the Legislative Affairs Committee. Last year, Mustafa wrote a resolution making formerly and currently incarcerated students a legislative priority for the SSCCC. And that'll be existing for another, I think, 2 years. So that was tasked to me, and I actually got together with 2 other lads because they were interested in the topic too. And we got really deep into it. We were meeting with people from the chancellor's office. We were doing a lot of research on it. And we were really just trying to find the best way to aid these formerly and currently incarcerated students. So we were seeking funding towards them. And in one of our meetings with one of the chancellor's office directors, I can't remember his name, but he was talking to us about how it's really hard to get any funding for incarcerated students at all. They can't really receive any financial aid. They can't have an income. The only income that you can have when you are incarcerated is through working in a prison where you really make cents on the dollar. And then a lot of that money goes to paying different things, any money that you owed or anything like that, any fees you had from your trial. So we saw an issue where we have a lot of these students who are doing college and stuff, but they can't afford it. They can't afford their textbooks. They have low access to materials as it is. And then on top of that, they come out owing all this money to the school, if that's the case, unless someone else is paying for it for them. So we did our research and we found that the Pell Grant was actually removed from access to incarcerated students. And then in 2015, the Obama administration did a trial run on it with just institutions throughout the entire United States. So we thought it would be great to bring that back. And the focus on it, for us at least, is to make sure that every California community college is participating in this with all institutions in California. I know that sounds kind of selfish, but again, we are looking out for California community college students specifically. So that was a specific ask in the resolution to ensure that all California community colleges are involved in the reestablishment of the Second Chance Pell Grant, because that would provide these students who have no access to money great opportunities in education. And statistically, if you get a degree while you are incarcerated, you are way less likely to be reincarcerated again after you leave. So the focus on that really was to bring these students to education and give them this opportunity to make them better members of society, then also to rehabilitate them while they're incarcerated. And that's going to bring more students into the California community college system and then make better citizens out of it. So that one has a lot more sympathy and really a larger ask, because that's really a federal ask to reinstate that Pell Grant for incarcerated students. That one was worked on with me, the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 2, Andrew Nickens, and then the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 9, Tariq Azim. And I am very happy that one passed too. That one was, in my opinion, our best resolution that we wrote, and it had the most amount of thought and the most amount of work put into it.
So playing a little bit of the devil's advocate, what did you think about the cons that were stated during GA about your Smoke and Tobacco-Free California Community College resolution?
I honestly kind of thought they were a little self-centered. A lot of them were really just in regards to, well, why can't we have a spot to smoke at? To me, kind of felt like, why do we have to consider everyone else just so that we can't smoke on campus? A lot of the arguments were really just, it's kind of our right to smoke, or we should at least have a spot to smoke. But even if you just have a spot to smoke, well, now you have all the tobacco in one area. And again, you're still in the way of students. And it's still in the air around those students. Whether it's off near a corner building or in the campus quad area, no matter what, you still have this smoke that's still affecting these students. And then if you have specific spots, it almost makes it worse because now it's a higher concentration just in that one area rather than diverse throughout the entire campus. So if we're going to have smoke spots, I'd rather you just smoke wherever you want on campus and just stay out of the way of people. But also, it's very easy to just walk across the street or go out to your car. I know smoke-free, tobacco-free campuses that are 100%, they don't even allow it in the parking lots, but if you were to go sit in your car, no one's going to question that. No one's going to knock on your window and tell you you can't smoke in your car. So I thought, honestly, most of the arguments were a little selfish and not really considering the rest of the students or how they felt about it. I mean, smoking isn't really a consensual thing. You don't have to ask people if it's okay. But knowing the health risk, knowing that secondhand smoke kills thousands of people a year, hundreds of thousands of people a year, it's a little selfish to argue that you want to smoke on campus still.
Thank you, Johnny. We appreciate the hard work that you do in BCSGA along with the SSCCC. You've been an amazing Region 5 Regional Affairs Director, Stephen Coder, and it's been a privilege that I am honored to have been in your leadership. Are there any last messages or comments from our speakers to our listeners?
I'd like to say a couple of things, Perla. As your Regional Affairs Director, I really appreciate Bakersfield College. Bakersfield College has always been very active in the region, and I really appreciate that. I mean, last year, both the Regional Affairs Director and the Legislative Affairs Director came out of Bakersfield College, and our Regional Advisor, Bakersfield College. So you guys have always been great. Pearlie, you have been an awesome delegate. I really appreciate you filling in this year. So I really appreciate you for that. Thanks for having me on this podcast. Johnny's been an amazing right-hand man for me and my Legislative Affairs Director. And Sam, you've always been there for our meetings. So I really appreciate all of you. To everyone listening, please reach out to these great student advocates. Point them in the direction of where the student voice needs to be heard, because they're here for you. They're here to advocate on your behalf. They already have the platforms to do it. They just need to be pushed in the right direction. So I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate you guys. It's been an honor to lead this region, and I really look forward to being able to lead the entire state next year. But don't worry, I'm Region 5 strong. I will always be around to help out. But yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Region 5!
Region 5!
Region 5.
Oh, I got one thing to say. It's been a great year with Region 5, with BCSGA. I feel like we've had a lot of tasks that we wanted to take on and a lot of tasks that we've seen through to fruition. We've had a great set of people on our team, and it hasn't been an easy year, especially in the end of this year. And I think overall, though, we've still been able to pull together as a region and as a college. I think we've set our sights on a lot of goals, and a lot of them are going to be lasting goals that will carry over to the next set of people. And I'm very happy with where we've gotten. I feel satisfied with the people that we have to take on after us. And that makes me happy, because I wasn't sure, actually, if there was going to be anyone after us who would be able to. But there's a lot of people in our region, a lot of people at our college. I think we'll be able to take on exactly what we've started and finish all of it.
I was just going to say, in May, at our May region meeting, it will be open for elections. So get the word out. Anybody, Bakersfield, like I said, has always been very active. So maybe our vice chair, Emma McNellis, if she's going to be around still, maybe she can fill in some of those shoes. But being a part of the region and being a part of the SSCCC is a great opportunity. Even in this whole pandemic, switching to online learning and everything, the needs of the students are still there. And if anything, the needs of the students just got bigger. Now you have technological needs and different needs, mental health needs. I'm going crazy just sitting in my house all day. We still need to advocate. Advocacy doesn't stop. So we still need to advocate for these students, and, joining the region and being a part of the SSCCC is a great way to do that.
You know what? I have one more thing to add. So one of my little legislative affairs task, I'm writing a letter of support for Assembly Bill 2884. If you don't know about that, it's the redistribution of the lottery funds, and we're advocating for those funds to be redistributed for basic needs for students. That's a huge thing because, like Stephen just said earlier, the needs of students keeps growing, and the financial burden just keeps piling up on these students. So those funds, I hope that we get that achieved. That bill is still in the process. This letter is going to be coming out this Thursday. I'll present it to the Legislative Affairs Committee. Be looking out for that. I can definitely send it your way if you guys want it. But that is one thing that we have always had our eyes on the basic needs for students. And with $87 million that went unused because it really just goes to the professors in the college system, that will go out to support a lot of students because right now FAFSA, Cal Grant, these scholarships, it doesn't always do the trick for all students. And this might actually open more doors for students who might not have direct access to FAFSA. I've never qualified for it for myself, so this might open doors for more students and give more opportunity to these students.
I wanted to put in a little message. When I joined BCSGA, I had no idea about the SSCCC and what you can do in student government and what power you can have through your voice. I know that I wasn't a political science major. I wasn't a social science major, but I knew that I wanted to be a voice for students that didn't have a voice. And I knew that if I wanted to ensure that the students had a voice, that my voice was being heard, then I had to be that voice. I had to make sure. And I remember the first meeting I had within the Region 5. I was Johnny's substitute delegate, and I remember that Ashley, the previous president, and Mustafa, the previous director of legislative affairs, and also the previous RAD of Region 5, they brought me on board, and I felt really welcomed my first time I was there in the SSCCC meeting for the Region 5. And I just want to put it out that you don't have to be in student government to be in the SSCCC. So if you really want to be that voice, but you don't want to be at the student government at your college, then you can go for the SSCCC. Honestly, being a part of student government and being a part of the SSCCC was the best decision that I made in my college education and the best investment that I made because I met so many individuals that have inspired me to become a better and stronger leader and also to advocate for all the voices that aren't being heard. And I know that this is my last year at BC and also in the SSCCC and also in BCSGA. But I know that I will take all the skills that I've learned from the SSCCC and BCSGA and bring them along with me as I transferred to UC or CSU. I'm so thankful for the people that I met, and I'm so thankful for our Region 5 RAD, Stephen Kodor, and our Region 5 LAD, Jonathan Madden, and our delegate, Perla Villegas, because they worked their butt offs just to make sure that all students' voices are heard. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on a panel with me, and thank you so much for representing my voice and all the students' voice.
One more thing to say about Stephen. So, I don't know if you remember this, Stephen, but when you got elected as the RAD, we were sitting there in that meeting at San Joaquin Delta. You were on teleconference, just made it to the call, I think, just to nominate yourself. During the Q&A session, I said, so I want to work with someone who I can have constant access to. Or are you going to be like easily contacted? And you said, yeah, bro, I got Snapchat, Instagram, and he listed off social medias. And you're like, you could just hit me up. And I was like, all right, I like this guy.
Oh. Yeah, that was great. I just wanted to say, hey, follow me, text me, call me. Beat me if you want to reach me. It doesn't matter. We got it.
When Johnny heard him, he was probably like, that's the one. That's my man right there.
At first, I was like, wait, is this dude just flexing social media? And then I was like, no, actually, I like that. I like this.
It's definitely been one hell of a ride, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. But I couldn't have done it without the people around me, so I really appreciate all of you.
We appreciate you the most. So, to our listeners, this is BCSGA Director of Student Activities, and thank y'all again for tuning into our podcast.
This is BCSGA President Samantha Gonzalez-Paleto, and we are BC.
This is BCSGA Director of Legislative Affairs and Finance, and we are BC.
And this is Stephen Kodor, your Regional Affairs Director for Region 5 from Reedley College. I just want to say, stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands. Practice your social distancing, but that doesn't mean you can't continue to participate in your student government virtual activities. Continue to stay involved. Continue to be an advocate. Thank you so much. Have a good one.